The deed felt wrong the moment Nathaniel Ashford unfolded it in the lamplight of the Silver Mare Inn. But the land agent had already pocketed his last gold coin and disappeared into the rain-soaked night. 1 gold piece for 140 acres, a stone ranch house, 3 barns and water rights along Ember Creek, either the greatest bargain in the Western Territories, or the worst mistake a man could make with his discharge pay. Nathaniel refolded the parchment, tucked it inside his worn cavalry coat, and guided his horse north toward property he had never seen, arriving just as the last daylight bled from the horizon. The ranch house stood dark against darker hills, its windows shuttered tight, smoke rising thin from the chimney. Nathaniel dismounted and approached the door, raised his hand to knock, then paused. Something about the silence felt occupied, watchful. He knocked anyway, 3 solid raps that echoed across the yard, nothing. He waited, knocked again, called out that he meant no harm, that he was the new owner. The silence thickened. A bolt scraped wood inside, but the door stayed closed. A woman's voice came through the planks, low and accented, speaking the common tongue carefully. "This house is occupied. Go away." "Madam, I have the deed right here. I bought this property today from an agent in Millbrook. I do not want trouble, but I have ridden 20 miles in the rain and I need shelter." I said go away. Nathaniel rubbed his face, water dripping from his hair. Exhaustion sat heavy in his bones, 6 years of cavalry service, 3 months of rough travel home to a family farm that no longer existed, and now this. He could force the issue. The deed gave him that right. But the war had taught him that legal rights and decent choices did not always align. "All right," he said. "I will sleep in the barn, but come morning we need to talk." Silence answered him. He led his horse across the yard to the nearest barn, found it clean and well-maintained with 6 stalls and a hayloft. 2 horses watched him from their boxes, mountain-bred by the look of them, sturdy and calm. He unsaddled his gelding, rubbed the animal down, found grain in a sealed barrel and hay racked neatly along the wall. Whoever lived here kept good care of their stock. He climbed to the loft, spread his bedroll in the hay, and fell asleep listening to rain drum the roof. A stick jabbed his ribs and Nathaniel jerked awake, hand going instinctively to his belt knife before his eyes focused on the small figure silhouetted against dawn light streaming through the loft door. A boy, maybe 7 years old, with green skin and small tusks just beginning to show at the corners of his mouth. Wide amber eyes stared down at Nathaniel with more curiosity than fear. "You are in our barn," the boy said, poking him again with the stick. Nathaniel sat up slowly, hands visible. "I am. Your mother would not let me in the house. Mama said a human came. She said you would make us leave." "I said nothing about making anyone leave. I just want to understand what is happening here." Nathaniel studied the boy's face, saw the mix of fear and defiance there, the way he gripped the stick like a weapon. "What is your name?" "Torak. I am Nathaniel. Pleased to meet you, Torak." "Torak." The woman's voice cut across the yard, sharp with alarm. "Torak, get away from there." The boy's eyes widened and he scrambled down the loft ladder. Nathaniel descended after him, emerging into the barn aisle to find a woman standing in the open doorway, backlit by sunrise. She was tall, perhaps 5.5 feet, with green skin several shades darker than her son's and black hair braided tight against her skull. She wore a plain work dress and boots, and she held a hay knife in one hand, not raised to strike, but ready. "Step away from him," she said. Nathaniel raised his hands. "I mean neither of you any harm. Men always say that." Her amber eyes flicked from him to Torak and back. "Inside, Torak. Now." The boy hesitated, looking between them, then ran past his mother toward the house. She watched Nathaniel, unmoving, until the boy disappeared through the door. Then she lowered the knife slightly. "My name is Asha Hornwood," she said. "My husband owned this ranch. He died 8 months ago, thrown from a green broke colt that spooked at a snake. The land is mine now and my son's. Whatever paper you bought is a fraud." Nathaniel pulled the deed from his coat carefully, keeping his movements slow. "An agent named Talbot sold it to me yesterday in Millbrook. He said the property had been abandoned, that the previous owner died without heirs. Then Talbot is a liar." Asha's voice shook slightly, anger or fear or both. "My husband was Gorak Hornwood. He bought this land 12 years ago, cleared it, built everything here. I have been working it alone since he died, and I will not be driven off by some human with a fake deed. May I approach?" "I want to show you the paper." She considered, then nodded once. Nathaniel walked forward slowly, stopped several paces away, and held out the deed. Asha shifted the hay knife to her left hand and took the parchment, unfolding it with one hand while keeping her eyes mostly on Nathaniel. She scanned the writing and her face went pale beneath the green. "This is real," she whispered. "The seal, the notary mark, this is real. I paid 1 gold coin for it. That should have told me something was wrong." Asha looked up at him, and Nathaniel saw the moment comprehension settled over her features. "Talbot. He has been trying to buy this land for 2 years. He offered silver for it after Gorak died, said an orc widow could not work a ranch alone, that I should take his charity and move to town. I refused, so he did this instead." Her hand clenched on the parchment, crumpling it. "He sold what was not his to sell, and now you have the law on your side and I have nothing." "That is not entirely true," Nathaniel said quietly. "I have a deed, yes, but you have been living here, working this land. There are laws about that too, and more importantly, I did not ride out here to throw a widow and child into the road." "Then what did you ride out here for, honestly?" "I was a fool looking for a new start, and I thought I had found a miracle bargain. Now I see I walked into someone else's fight." Nathaniel gestured at the deed. "Let me look at your husband's original papers. Maybe there is a way to sort this that does not end with you homeless or me cheated." Asha stared at him for a long moment, searching his face. "Why would you help me? You are human, I am orc. The law will take your side without question. The law and decency are not always the same thing. I learned that the hard way." Nathaniel lowered his hands. "Look, I need coffee and you probably need to think. Can we at least talk inside like civilized people?" "Civilized." Asha's mouth twisted around the word. "Is that what humans call it when they steal orc land with legal tricks?" "It is what I call it when 2 people try to solve a problem without violence." Nathaniel met her eyes steadily. "I could have broken down your door last night. I did not. I could demand you leave right now. I will not. All I am asking for is a conversation and maybe some coffee if you have it." Asha stood silent, then nodded sharply. "One conversation. Then we see." She turned and walked toward the house, and Nathaniel followed, very aware of the knife still in her hand. The ranch house was small but well built, with stone walls and good timber beams. The main room held a kitchen area, a table with 4 chairs and a fireplace where a pot already steamed. Torak sat at the table, eyes huge, watching Nathaniel like he might explode into violence at any moment. Asha pointed to a chair. "Sit." Nathaniel sat. Asha poured coffee into 2 tin cups, set one in front of him, then sat across the table with Torak pressed against her side. She finally set the hay knife down, but within easy reach. "My husband's papers are in a lockbox under the floorboards," she said. "The original deed, the water rights, the survey maps. All legal, all recorded in Millbrook 7 years ago when the county organized. If Talbot sold this ranch, he forged documents or bribed the notary, or both. Nathaniel sipped the coffee, strong and bitter and exactly what he needed. Talbot said the land had been vacant for a year. Obviously, that was a lie. Did he know you were still here? Of course he knew. He came by 3 months ago with 2 hired men, offered me 10 silver and a wagon to vacate. When I refused, he said I would regret it. Asha's hand tightened on her cup. I thought he meant he would bring the sheriff, claim squatting or some other false charge. I did not imagine this. He must want this land badly. Why? It is good property, but not so special that a man would commit fraud for it. Asha and Torak exchanged a look, some silent communication passing between them. Asha's jaw tightened. "The horses," she said finally. "My husband spent 10 years breeding a mountain horse line that can carry weight over high passes, survive on scrub, and work in snow. Draft horse strength with mountain pony endurance. Every rancher and ore hauler in 3 territories would pay gold for that bloodline, but Gorak never registered it, never sold outside the immediate valley. He wanted to perfect the line first, make sure it bred true. And now Talbot wants it. Now Talbot knows what it is worth, yes, especially in a drought year." Asha glanced toward the window. "Our spring runs year-round, fed from deep aquifer. Most of the valley wells have gone dry or brackish this summer. Talbot owns a freight company. He needs the water and the horses, and I am just an orc widow with no legal standing in his eyes." Nathaniel sat back, pieces falling into place. "So he arranged a fraudulent sale to someone who did not know the land's value, figuring you would be evicted, and he could buy the property from me for a reasonable price once you were gone. Clean and legal from his perspective. And you would have made a profit, so why would you question it?" Asha's voice was flat. "A clever plan, except you did not immediately throw me out. No." "Why not?" Nathaniel turned the coffee cup in his hands, considering his answer. 6 years ago, I enlisted to fight the Northern Wars. I was told we were defending civilization against orc raiders. What I found when I got there was mostly orc farmers trying to protect their villages from human expansion. We burned a lot of homes, Asha, drove off a lot of families. I followed orders, did my duty, and it made me sick. When my term ended, I came home to find my own family farm had been bought out by a railroad company while I was gone. My parents took their payout and moved east, left me a letter and enough coin to start over." He met her eyes. "So when I saw a cheap ranch for sale, I thought maybe I could build something instead of destroying it for once. But I will not do to you what was done to my family or what I did to others during the war. That is why." Asha studied him in silence, her expression unreadable. Torak whispered something in Orcish and she shook her head, responding in the same language. The boy looked at Nathaniel with less fear now, more curiosity. "You were a soldier," Asha said, "cavalry, 6th Mountain Division. Did you kill orcs?" "Yes." She absorbed that, nodded once. "At least you do not lie about it. Most humans would." She stood abruptly, walked to the far corner of the room, and knelt. A moment later she pried up a floorboard and pulled out a small iron lockbox. She brought it to the table, opened it with a key from around her neck, and spread papers across the wood. "This is everything Gorak left. Deeds, survey, water rights, horse lineage records. Look." Nathaniel examined the documents carefully. All appeared legitimate, properly notarized, dated years before his own deed. The water rights in particular were detailed and explicit, granting the Hornwood family exclusive access to the spring and creek. "These should trump anything Talbot produced," Nathaniel said. "If we take this to the county seat, you think they will take an orc's word over a human land agent's?" Asha laughed bitter. You think a judge will even see me? They will see me, and I will testify that Talbot misrepresented the sale. Why would you do that? It would void your deed, cost you your gold. The gold is already gone, spent on a fraudulent sale. Better to get the truth out than to profit from a lie. Nathaniel pushed the papers back toward her. But there might be another way. What if we go to the notary in Millbrook, the one who sealed my deed? If we can prove he knew the sale was fraudulent, or if Talbot bribed him, we might be able to pressure them into backing down before this reaches a judge. Asha sank back into her chair, looking suddenly exhausted. And if that fails, then we fight it legally. Together, if you will let me. Why together? Because you know this land and I know how to navigate bureaucracy and legal fights, and because Nathaniel paused, choosing his words carefully. Because I think Talbot assumed you would be alone, easy to push around. Two of us standing together is harder to dismiss. Torak tugged his mother's sleeve and spoke in Orcish again. Asha replied, then looked at Nathaniel. My son asks if you are going to stay, or if you will leave like the others. What others? Neighbors who used to buy our horses, trade labor at harvest. After Gorak died, they stopped coming. Too uncomfortable, I think, dealing with an orc without a human to vouch for her. Asha's voice was carefully neutral, but Nathaniel heard the hurt beneath. So, will you stay or go? Nathaniel thought about the barn, the well-maintained fences, the healthy horses, the neat house. Thought about this woman working alone for 8 months to hold onto what her husband built, raising a son in a place that offered her no kindness or grace. I will stay, he said. At least until this is sorted, I have no other place to be. I cannot pay you. I am not asking for pay. Just a place to sleep and food if you can spare it. I will work for my keep, repairs, heavy labor, whatever you need. In exchange, you teach me about the horses and the land, and we face Talbot together. Asha looked at him for a long time, then slowly extended her hand across the table. Agreed. But if you betray me, Nathaniel Ashford, I will make you regret it. Her grip was strong and calloused when he shook her hand. Understood. Torak grinned suddenly, tusks showing, and said something that made Asha smile despite herself. She tousled the boy's hair. He says you can stay in the guest room instead of the barn if you promise not to snore. I make no promises about the snoring, Nathaniel said, and was rewarded with the boy's delighted laugh. The next 3 days established a rhythm that felt oddly comfortable, despite the strangeness of their situation. Nathaniel rose before dawn, helped Asha with the morning barn work, then spent his days repairing the endless small breakdowns that accumulated on a working ranch. A fence section with rotted posts, a barn door with a cracked hinge, the chicken coop where something had tried to dig under the wire. Asha worked with fierce efficiency, moving between tasks with minimal wasted motion. She spoke little while working, but Nathaniel learned to read her moods in small signs: the set of her shoulders, the rhythm of her breathing, the way she hummed tunelessly when a job went well. Torak followed them both like a curious shadow, too young to be much practical help, but eager to try everything. On the 4th morning, Nathaniel found Asha in the main barn with one of the mares, a dappled gray with intelligent eyes and the heavy build characteristic of her husband's breeding program. This is Stormcloud, Asha said, running a hand down the mare's shoulder. She is the foundation of our best line. Gorak bought her dam from a mountain trader and crossed her with a draft stallion he traded for. The result, she gestured at the horse, strength and endurance. Stormcloud has carried 300 pounds over a 12-mile mountain pass without flagging. She is beautiful. Nathaniel approached slowly, let the mare smell his hand before touching her neck. How many horses do you have now? 12. 6 mares, 4 geldings, 2 stallions, Before Gorak died, we had 20, but I sold some to buy grain and pay the land tax. Asha's voice tightened. Talbot bought 4 of them, paid half what they were worth, and I had no choice but to take it. He has been circling for a while then, like a vulture. Asha pulled a brush from a peg and began working over the mare's coat. He knew Gorak's death left me vulnerable. An orc woman cannot get fair prices at market, cannot get credit from the bank, cannot even file a legal claim without a human sponsor. The law says we are allowed to own property, but every part of the system is designed to make it nearly impossible. Nathaniel had no answer to that, because she was right. He had seen it during the war, seen it in town after town orcs who existed in a legal gray space, technically citizens but functionally powerless. He took a second brush and began working on the mare's other side. "Tell me about Gorak," he said. "If that is all right." Asha was quiet for a moment, brush moving in long strokes. "We met when I was 16. My family worked a farm on the eastern plains, barely scraping by. Gorak came through with a horse trading caravan, and she smiled slightly, lost in memory. He was loud and confident, and he made me laugh. My father hated him, said he was a wanderer, not serious. But Gorak came back the next spring and asked me to marry him, said he was going to buy land out west and build something permanent, so I went. Do you regret it? Never. Gorak gave me 12 good years, a son, in this place. He worked himself half to death building it, but he was happy. He wanted to leave Torak something that could not be taken away." Her hand stilled on the brush. "And now I am fighting to keep that promise." "We will keep it," Nathaniel said, "one way or another." Asha glanced at him across the mare's back. "You sound very certain for a man who just met us." "I am certain that Talbot is a cheat and you deserve better. The rest we will figure out as we go." Something shifted in her expression, a softening around the eyes. "You are a strange man, Nathaniel Ashford, so I have been told." They finished grooming the mare in companionable silence. When they led her back to her stall, Torak came running from the house, waving a piece of paper. "Mama, a man came. He left this." Asha took the paper, unfolded it, and her face went hard. "Talbot. He requests a meeting tomorrow in Millbrook at the notary office. Says there are irregularities with the deed that must be resolved. He knows we are together," Nathaniel said. "Someone must have seen me here, talked in town. Of course they did. Half the valley probably knows by now." Asha crumpled the note. "He is going to pressure the notary to void my claim and reinforce yours. Then he will offer to buy you out, and I will have no standing to object. Then we go in prepared. Bring your husband's papers, and I will make it clear I have no intention of selling." Nathaniel met her eyes. "He cannot void a sale to someone who refuses to cooperate. You do not know Talbot. He is very good at making cooperation happen. Then he can try. I have dealt with worse than land agents." Asha studied him, then nodded slowly. "All right, we go tomorrow." "But Nathaniel, be ready for this to get ugly. Talbot does not lose gracefully." They rode into Millbrook at mid-morning, Nathaniel on his gelding and Asha on a sturdy bay mare, with Torak sitting before his mother in the saddle. The town was larger than Nathaniel expected, perhaps 300 people, with a main street lined with shops and a whitewashed courthouse at the far end. People stopped to stare as they passed, conversations dying mid-word. Nathaniel felt the weight of their eyes, saw the way some faces twisted with distaste at the sight of Asha. The notary office sat between a dry goods store and a barber shop, a narrow building with dusty windows. Nathaniel dismounted and helped Torak down while Asha tied the horses. A man stood waiting by the door, tall, silver-haired, dressed in a fine wool suit that marked him as prosperous. His smile was all teeth. "Mr. Ashford, I presume? I am Marcus Talbot. We did not have a chance to properly meet when you purchased your property." He extended a hand and Nathaniel shook it, feeling the calculated strength of the grip. Talbot's eyes flicked to Asha and dismissed her in the same instant. "I see you have met the previous tenant. Unfortunate business, all this confusion." "Confusion," Asha repeated, her voice flat. "Indeed. It seems there was an error in the county records. The property you have been squatting on, Asha took a step forward, and Nathaniel moved slightly to intercept her, hand raised in a calming gesture. "Mr. Talbot, perhaps we should discuss this inside with the notary present." Nathaniel kept his voice level. "I think we all want this resolved properly." Talbot's smile never wavered. "Of course, Mr. Pemberton is expecting us." The notary office smelled of ink and old paper. A thin man with wire spectacles looked up from a desk buried in ledgers, his expression nervous. Nathaniel recognized the look a man caught in something bigger than he wanted to be part of. "Mr. Pemberton," Talbot said smoothly, "thank you for making time for us. This should be brief. I simply need you to explain to Mr. Ashford how the deed transfer was properly executed, and to clarify for Mrs. Hornwood that her tenancy has ended." Pemberton licked his lips. "Well, the records show that my husband bought that land 12 years ago," Asha interrupted, pulling the lockbox papers from her coat. "Here is the original deed, properly notarized with water rights and survey included. Whatever you filed for Mr. Ashford is fraudulent." Pemberton barely glanced at the papers. "Those documents are outdated. The property reverted to county holdings upon your husband's death due to unpaid taxes." "That is a lie," Asha said. "I paid the taxes 5 months ago in this very office." "You witnessed it." "I have no record of such a payment." Pemberton shuffled papers on his desk, not meeting her eyes. Nathaniel felt anger coil in his gut. "You are saying she did not pay or that you did not record it." "I am saying there is no record," Pemberton said primly. "Without proof of payment, the property went to auction for tax recovery. Mr. Talbot purchased the auction rights and offered it to you at a very generous price." "I have the receipt," Asha said. "At home in the lockbox. You gave it to me yourself." "Then produce it." "Until you do, the legal transfer stands." Talbot's voice was silk over iron. "Mr. Ashford, I apologize for dragging you into this mess. The woman is clearly confused about the legal realities. However, I am prepared to buy the property from you immediately, 5 gold coins, more than fair for unimproved ranchland." Nathaniel looked at him, at the smug certainty in the man's face, and made his decision. "No." Talbot's smile froze. "I beg your pardon. I said no. I am not selling." "Mr. Ashford, be reasonable. You paid 1 gold coin for property that comes with a sitting tenant who refuses to leave, questionable legal standing, and a drought that has made half the valley uninhabitable. I am offering you a profit and a clean exit. And I am telling you I am not interested." Nathaniel turned to Pemberton. "You notarized the deed you gave me. Did you or did you not know at that time that Mrs. Hornwood was living on and working that land?" Pemberton's face went pale. The records indicated. Answer the question. Did you know?" "Legal occupancy is not the same as did you know." Nathaniel's voice cracked like a whip and Pemberton flinched. "Yes," the notary whispered. "But the law requires you to disclose known occupancy during a property transfer. You did not. That makes the sale questionable at best, fraudulent at worst." Nathaniel had no idea if that was true, but Pemberton's stricken expression suggested it might be. "Mrs. Hornwood, do you have the tax receipt at home?" "Yes." "Then we will return with it." "Mr. Pemberton, I suggest you find your copy of that transaction before we come back, because if Mrs. Hornwood's receipt exists and yours does not, it is going to look very much like you took her money, and then failed to record it. That is called embezzlement. Pemberton made a strangled sound. Talbot's face darkened. Mr. Ashford, you are making a very serious mistake. You do not know how things work in this valley. Then educate me. Nathaniel met his eyes without flinching. But do it somewhere other than a notary office where you have clearly tampered with records. How dare you, we are leaving, Nathaniel said. Mrs. Hornwood, Torak, come on. Asha stared at him for a moment, something like wonder in her face, then gathered her papers and followed. Torak clutched her hand, eyes huge. They made it outside before Talbot's voice stopped them. Ashford. Nathaniel turned. Talbot stood in the doorway, his genial mask completely gone. You think you are being noble, defending the poor widow. You are just a fool who does not understand the situation. That land is mine. The horses are mine. The water is mine, and one way or another I will have them. Is that a threat? It is a fact. Walk away now while you can. Nathaniel stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Talbot could hear. I spent 6 years watching powerful men take what they wanted from people who could not fight back. I am done watching. If you want that land, you will have to go through me, and I promise you it will cost more than you are willing to pay. He turned and walked to the horses, helped Torak into the saddle, then mounted his own gelding. Asha swung up onto her mare, and they rode out of town in tense silence. No one spoke until Millbrook disappeared behind them. That was foolish, Asha said finally. You made an enemy today. I made my choice. Nathaniel glanced at her. Do you really have the tax receipt? Yes, I keep all important papers in the lockbox. Then we have leverage. Pemberton knows he broke the law, and Talbot knows we know. That gives us room to maneuver. Asha shook her head slowly. You do not understand. Talbot owns half of Millbrook. The sheriff, the judge, the bank, they all owe him favors or money. He does not need the law on his side when he can simply make the law. Maybe. But he looked worried back there just for a moment. Men like that, they rely on everyone being too scared to push back. The moment someone does, their whole strategy falls apart. Or they break the person who pushed back. Nathaniel had no answer to that, because she was right. They rode the rest of the way in silence, tension humming between them like a plucked string. At the ranch, Asha went straight to the lockbox and pulled out a folded paper, yellowed at the edges but clearly stamped with the county seal and dated 5 months prior. The tax receipt, signed by Pemberton himself. This is your proof, Nathaniel said. With this, we can force Pemberton to admit he took your payment. And then what? You think they will just give up? No, but it makes your claim stronger and my deed more questionable. If we take this to the county seat, to a judge who does not owe Talbot favors, that is 3 days' ride. And who watches the ranch while we are gone? Who keeps Talbot from just taking the horses and claiming salvage rights? Asha's voice rose, frustration breaking through. You mean well, Nathaniel, I believe that. But you are thinking like a soldier, like there are rules that matter. Out here, for people like me, there are no rules. There is only what you can hold on to and what gets taken. Torak had disappeared into his small bedroom, giving them privacy. Nathaniel set the receipt on the table carefully. You are right, he said. I do not fully understand what you are up against, but I know something about fighting when the deck is stacked against you, and I know the first rule is not to give up before you have to. Yes, Talbot has power. Yes, the system favors him. But he made mistakes today. He showed his hand, and he underestimated us. That gives us an opening. An opening to do what? To make enough noise that he cannot silence us quietly. To get enough people asking questions that even Talbot's friends have to step carefully. Nathaniel leaned forward. You said he owns a freight company. That means he has competitors, people who would love to see him knock down a peg. We find them, we tell this story, we make it a scandal instead of a quiet land grab. Asha sank into a chair, exhaustion evident in every line of her body. And if that fails, then we make him take us to court, and we make it as public and expensive as possible. We make sure everyone knows what he did and why. Even if we lose, we make him pay for it. She looked up at him, and Nathaniel saw the war happening behind her eyes, hope against despair, trust against bitter experience. Finally, she nodded once. All right. We try it your way, but Nathaniel, if this goes wrong, you can walk away. You bought a fraudulent deed, you are a victim too. But Torak and I, we have nowhere else to go. This is everything we have. I know. Nathaniel met her eyes steadily, and I am not walking away. The next week passed in a strange suspension, waiting for Talbot's next move. Nathaniel threw himself into ranch work, repairing everything that needed attention and some things that did not, burning off nervous energy. Asha worked alongside him, teaching him about the horses, the land, the rhythms of the ranch. Torak attached himself to Nathaniel with the single-minded devotion of a boy starved for male attention. He followed Nathaniel everywhere, asking endless questions about the war, about cavalry horses, about Nathaniel's family. Nathaniel answered what he could, edited the war stories to remove the worst parts, and found himself unexpectedly charmed by the boy's enthusiasm. "Papa used to let me help with the training," Torak said one afternoon, watching Nathaniel mend fence. "He said I had good hands, that the horses trusted me. Do you miss him?" "Every day." Torak picked up a stick and drew patterns in the dirt. "Mama cries sometimes at night. She thinks I do not hear, but I do. She is scared we will lose the ranch." Nathaniel set down his hammer. "We are not going to lose the ranch." "How do you know?" "Because your mother is the stubbornest person I have ever met, and I am too foolish to quit. Between the two of us, Talbot does not stand a chance." Torak smiled, showing his small tusks. "Mama says you are either very brave or very stupid." "Probably both." Nathaniel ruffled the boy's hair and was surprised when Torak leaned into the touch, starved for affection. Something in Nathaniel's chest tightened. This boy, this family, they had been through enough. He would be damned if he let Talbot destroy what little they had left. That evening, as the three of them sat at dinner, hoofbeats sounded in the yard. Nathaniel rose, hand going to the rifle by the door, but Asha shook her head. Just one horse, probably a neighbor. She opened the door to reveal an older man on a sway-backed mare, weathered face creased with worry. "Asha, I heard what happened in town. Is it true Talbot is trying to take your land, Mr. Fletcher?" Asha's voice was cautious. "Yes, it is true." Fletcher dismounted, nodding to Nathaniel. "You are the new fellow then, Ashford?" "Yes, sir." "Fletcher runs the farm 2 miles west," Asha explained. "He and Gorak were friendly." "Friendly enough that I owe you a warning," Fletcher said. "Talbot has been going around to all the ranchers in the valley, offering good money for their water access during the drought. Everyone who refuses gets a visit from the sheriff about some regulation violation or another. He is squeezing people, making it clear that cooperation keeps things smooth." "And you came to tell us this why?" Asha's voice was flat, expecting betrayal. "Because it is wrong, that is why." Fletcher looked genuinely angry. "Gorak was a good man and a good neighbor. You did not deserve to lose him, and you sure as hell do not deserve to lose the ranch too. Most folks around here are too scared to say it, but someone should." Asha's expression softened slightly. "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher. There is more. Talbot is planning something for the autumn horse fair. I do not know what, but he has been talking to traders, making arrangements. Whatever he is up to, it involves your horses." Nathaniel and Asha exchanged glances. "The fair is in 3 weeks," Asha said. That is when we were going to sell 2 of the yearlings, try to raise some cash. He is going to try to stop you, Fletcher said. Or claim the horses are his or something. Just be careful. And if you need someone to witness that your horses are yours, I will testify. Gorak bought the foundation stock fair and square, and everyone in the valley knows it. That could make trouble for you, Nathaniel said. I am too old and too mean to care much about trouble anymore. Fletcher tipped his hat to Asha. You need help, you send word. Not everyone has forgotten what decency looks like. He rode off into the gathering dark, leaving Nathaniel and Asha standing in the doorway. Well, Nathaniel said, at least we have one ally. One ally against a man who owns the valley. But Asha's voice held a note of hope that had not been there before. Still, it is something. The weeks before the horse fair passed in a blur of preparation. Asha worked with the 2 yearlings she planned to sell, getting them accustomed to being handled by strangers, showing off their gaits and strength. Nathaniel helped where he could, learning the subtleties of horse training through observation and Asha's terse instructions. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls between them began to crumble. Nathaniel caught himself watching Asha work, admiring the efficient grace of her movements, the way she gentled a nervous horse with soft words and patient hands. He noticed small things, the way she braided her hair differently on hot days, the scar on her left forearm that she absently rubbed when thinking, the rare, full smile that transformed her entire face. Asha, for her part, seemed increasingly comfortable with his presence. She stopped tensing when he approached, started asking his opinion on ranch decisions, even laughed at his occasional dry observations about ranch life. Once, working together to move a heavy feed barrel, their hands touched and she did not immediately pull away. Neither acknowledged the shift, but Torak noticed. Mama smiles more now, he told Nathaniel one morning. She has not smiled much since Papa died. Your mother has had a hard time, Nathaniel said carefully. She deserves to smile. Do you like her? Nathaniel paused in brushing down his gelding, caught off guard by the direct question. Yes, I like her. She is a good person. Papa used to say Mama was the strongest person he knew. He said she could do anything. Torak's voice went quiet. I wish he was still here. I know, son. Nathaniel set down the brush and crouched to the boy's level. Nothing will replace your father, but that does not mean your mother has to face everything alone. All right. Torak nodded, eyes bright with unshed tears, and Nathaniel pulled him into a brief hug, feeling the boy's thin shoulders shake with suppressed grief. When Torak pulled away, he scrubbed at his eyes and ran off toward the house, leaving Nathaniel with a fierce protective ache in his chest. That night, unable to sleep, Nathaniel sat on the porch watching stars wheel overhead. The door opened behind him and Asha emerged, wrapped in a shawl against the autumn chill. Cannot sleep, she asked. Too much thinking. She sat beside him, not quite touching, and they shared the silence for a while. Finally, Asha spoke. Torak told me what you said earlier about me not facing things alone. I should not have presumed. No, it was, she paused, choosing words. It was kind and strange. I am not used to humans being kind without wanting something in return. I am not entirely selfless. I get a place to stay and work, that matters. That is more than I had before. You could have worked anywhere. You chose to stay here, knowing it would be difficult. Nathaniel glanced at her, at the way moonlight caught the angles of her face, the strength in the set of her jaw. I stayed because walking away would have made me a coward. I stayed because what Talbot is doing is wrong. And I stayed because, he hesitated, then pushed forward. Because you and Torak deserve better than what this valley has given you. Someone should stand up and say that. Asha was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick. You barely know us. I know enough. She turned to look at him fully, and Nathaniel saw tears tracking down her green cheeks, silver in the moonlight. "Why are you really doing this, Nathaniel? And do not tell me it is about justice or making amends for the war. Those are true, but they are not the whole truth." He met her eyes, saw the vulnerability there, the desperate need to understand, and he found himself answering with an honesty that surprised him. "Because from the moment I saw you standing in that barn doorway with a knife in your hand and your son behind you, I saw someone worth fighting for. Because working this ranch with you feels more right than anything has in years. Because Torak looks at me like I might be someone worth believing in, and I do not want to disappoint him." He took a breath. "And because when you smile, it is the best part of my day. That is the truth." Asha's breath caught. "Nathaniel, I am not asking for anything," he said quickly. "I know you loved Gorak. I know you are still grieving. You asked for the truth, and that is it." She reached out slowly, hesitantly, and took his hand in both of hers. Her palms were calloused and warm. "You are a very strange man, Nathaniel Ashford, but a good one, I think. A very good one." They sat like that, hands clasped, until the chill drove them inside to separate rooms. But something had changed between them. A door opened that neither could close again. The day before the horse fair, a rider came from town, the sheriff, a heavy-set man with cold eyes and a badge that shone too bright. "Mrs. Hornwood, Mr. Ashford." He did not dismount. "I am here to inform you that there is a legal challenge to your ownership of the horses you plan to sell tomorrow. Mr. Talbot has filed a claim stating that 4 head of stock currently on this property were purchased from you 5 months ago and never delivered." "That is a lie," Asha said flatly. "I sold Talbot 4 horses and he took them the same day. They are at his freight yard right now. Nevertheless, there is a claim filed. Until it is resolved, I am placing a hold on all sales of livestock from this property." The sheriff pulled a paper from his coat and held it out. "This is the court order." Nathaniel took the paper, scanned it quickly. It looked legitimate, signed by a judge in Millbrook. "This is dated yesterday." "You could not possibly have gotten a court hearing that fast unless it was arranged beforehand." "I do not comment on court schedules. I just serve the orders." The sheriff tipped his hat with mocking courtesy. "Enjoy the fair, folks, but if you try to sell those horses, I will arrest you for theft." He rode off, leaving them standing in the yard holding a piece of paper that gutted their plans. "He is going to stop us from selling," Asha said, voice hollow. "Without that money we cannot pay next quarter's taxes, and without proof we can pay, he will claim we defaulted again." Nathaniel read the order again, looking for loopholes. "This specifies selling. It does not say anything about showing the horses or taking bids or making arrangements for future sales. What good does that do? Maybe a lot. What if we go to the fair, show the yearlings, let people see what your husband bred? We do not sell tomorrow, we take orders for spring delivery after this nonsense gets sorted out. We prove there is demand, prove the bloodline is valuable. Talbot will still block the sales. Let him try. If we have a dozen ranchers willing to testify they want to buy your horses, it gets a lot harder for him to claim the stock is worthless or disputed." Nathaniel looked at her. "You said your husband wanted to make sure the line bred true before going public. Well, you have done that. Tomorrow we show everyone what you have. We make enough noise that Talbot cannot bury this quietly." Asha stared at him, then at the court order, then back at him. Slowly, a fierce grin spread across her face. "You are absolutely insane, probably. Is that a yes?" "That is a yes." They rode into the fair at dawn, the 2 yearlings on lead ropes behind them. The fairground sprawled across a river meadow, already crowded with horses, cattle, traders, and farmers. Nathaniel felt eyes follow them as they found space to set up, heard the whispers, saw people pointing. Let them stare, Asha muttered, tying the yearlings to a picket line. They will change their tune when they see what these horses can do. And people did look, once they got past their discomfort with Asha. The yearlings were magnificent. Even Nathaniel's untrained eye could see that powerful hindquarters, deep chests, calm temperaments. A trader stopped to examine one, running expert hands over the horse's legs and back. Fine bone structure, he said. Mountain breeding. My husband's line, Asha said. Draft and mountain pony cross, bred for endurance and weight carrying. Asha Hornwood stock, the trader's eyes widened. I heard about his program but never saw the results. This is exceptional work. Word spread. By mid-morning they had a crowd, ranchers, traders, freighters, all asking questions, examining the horses, making calculations. Fletcher showed up with 2 other valley farmers, all of them loudly praising the Hornwood bloodline. Nathaniel watched Asha field questions and offers, saw her straighten with pride as people recognized the quality of the work. Then Talbot arrived. He came with the sheriff and 2 hired men, all of them armed. The crowd parted nervously as they approached. Mrs. Hornwood, Talbot said, voice carrying across the fairground. I believe the sheriff delivered a court order yesterday, yet here you are, attempting to sell stolen stock. We are not selling anything, Nathaniel said before Asha could respond. We are showing our horses and discussing potential future transactions, which is entirely legal. Future transactions involving stolen property are still illegal. Talbot nodded to the sheriff. Confiscate the animals. On what grounds? An older man pushed through the crowd, the trader who had first examined the yearlings. I have been in this business 30 years, Talbot, and I know Asha Hornwood's breeding program. These are his horses, not yours. Asha Hornwood is dead. The property has reverted to his widow, according to every legal precedent in the territories. The trader looked around at the gathered crowd. Is this how we do business now, stealing from widows and calling it law? Murmurs ran through the crowd, not all of them friendly to Talbot. The sheriff looked uncertain, hand drifting toward his pistol but not drawing. Talbot's face darkened. Stay out of this, Carmichael. It does not concern you. It concerns everyone who values honest trade. Carmichael pulled a card from his vest. Mrs. Hornwood, I would like to commission 3 horses from your spring foaling, delivered next autumn, payment on delivery. Here is my letter of intent. He handed the paper to Asha, and the gesture broke something open. Other traders and ranchers surged forward, calling out bids, making offers, asking for terms. In the space of 5 minutes, Asha had promises for a dozen horses and enough gold to keep the ranch afloat for 2 years. Talbot watched it happen, rage distorting his features. This is not over, he said, voice low and vicious. Sheriff, I want these people investigated for fraud. And everyone who just made an offer, remember that I control most of the freight contracts in this valley. Cross me, and your goods sit in my warehouses. Are you threatening people in front of witnesses? Nathaniel asked pleasantly. Because that seems unwise. Talbot leaned close, voice dropping to a whisper only Nathaniel could hear. You have no idea what you are playing with, soldier boy. I will destroy you and that orc whore and her brat. And when I am done, there will not be enough left to bury. Nathaniel smiled, cold and sharp. You can try. Talbot stormed off, the sheriff trailing behind him. The hired men lingered a moment longer, their message clear, then followed. The crowd buzzed with shocked conversation. Well, Carmichael said, breaking the tension. That was dramatic. Mrs. Hornwood, I meant what I said about those horses. Asha told me years ago he was working on something special, and these yearlings prove it. You have buyers any time you are ready. Thank you, Asha said, voice shaking slightly. "I thank you." The rest of the day passed in a blur. More offers, more questions, more people recognizing the quality of the Hornwood line. Torak glowed with pride, telling everyone who would listen about his father's breeding program. And through it all, Nathaniel watched Asha blossom under the attention, the respect, the acknowledgement that her work mattered. As the sun set and the crowd thinned, Fletcher approached with a serious expression. "You made a real enemy today," he said quietly. "Talbot is not going to let this go." "I know," Nathaniel said. "Then you should also know there are about a dozen of us in the valley who are tired of his bullying. You need help, you send word. We may not be fighters, but we can be witnesses. Make sure whatever he tries happens in daylight where people can see." "I appreciate that, Mr. Fletcher." The old farmer nodded, then looked at Asha. "Your Gorak would be proud of you today. You did right by his work." Asha's eyes welled and she nodded wordlessly. Fletcher tipped his hat and walked away, leaving the three of them standing in the gathering dark. "We should get home," Asha said finally. "It is a 2-hour ride in full light, longer in the dark." They loaded the yearlings and started back, riding through a landscape painted silver by moonlight. Torak fell asleep in his mother's arms, exhausted by the day's excitement. Nathaniel and Asha rode side by side in comfortable silence. "Today was good," Asha said softly. "Really good. People saw the horses, saw what Gorak built. That matters. It was more than good. You were magnificent." She glanced at him, and even in the dim light he could see her smile. "We were magnificent. I could not have done it without you. You would have found a way. Maybe, but it would not have been the same." She paused, then said very quietly, "I am glad you stayed, Nathaniel, glad you are here. Me too." They rode on through the night, and Nathaniel felt something settle in his chest, a sense of rightness that had been missing for years. This place, this woman, this strange found family, it felt like home in a way nothing had since before the war. They were a mile from the ranch when Nathaniel saw the glow on the horizon. Asha. She looked up, saw it too, and kicked her horse into a gallop. Nathaniel followed, heart hammering, praying he was wrong. But as they crested the final hill, the truth became undeniable. The main barn was on fire, flames eating through the roof and walls, smoke billowing black against the stars. "The horses!" Asha screamed, already dismounting at a run. "Nathaniel, the horses are in there!" Nathaniel hit the ground running, heard the terrified screams of animals trapped in the inferno. The barn door was chained shut from the outside, fresh chain that gleamed in the firelight. Someone had done this deliberately, locked the horses in to die. "Torak, stay back." Asha shoved her son toward the house, then ran for the barn. Nathaniel grabbed an axe from the woodpile and attacked the chain, adrenaline lending him strength. 3 blows and the chain parted. He kicked the door open and heat blasted out along with choking smoke. "Cover your mouth," he shouted to Asha. They plunged into hell together. The horses were in full panic, crashing against stall doors, screaming their terror. Nathaniel grabbed the first door, threw it open, slapped the mare inside hard on the rump. She bolted past him toward the open barn door and safety. Asha was already pulling another horse free, shouting directions in Orcish and Common, moving with frantic speed. Smoke seared Nathaniel's lungs. He could barely see, barely breathe, but he kept moving door after door, horse after horse. A burning beam crashed down behind him and he felt the heat through his coat. Asha materialized out of the smoke, her face smeared with soot, eyes streaming. "That is all of them," she shouted. "We have to get out." They stumbled toward the door as another section of roof collapsed, sparks exploding upward. Nathaniel's foot caught on something and he went down hard. Asha grabbed his arm, hauled him up with surprising strength, and they burst out of the barn into clear air. Torak ran to them, crying. Asha pulled him close, coughing, counting horses in the light of the burning barn. 7, 8, 9, where are the others? They ran toward the creek, Nathaniel gasped, lungs burning. I saw them go. They are safe. They stood watching the barn burn, too exhausted and overwhelmed to do anything but witness the destruction. The structure groaned and collapsed inward, sending another gout of flame skyward. Hours of work, years of Gorak's effort going up in smoke. Talbot did this, Asha said, voice dead. He knew we would be at the fair all day. He did this. We do not know, I know. She turned to Nathaniel and he saw murder in her eyes. He burned the barn, chained the door. He tried to kill our horses, but he failed. The horses are safe, the house is untouched, and you have witnesses from the fair who will testify to his threats. Nathaniel took her shoulders gently. This was meant to break you, Asha. Do not let it. We rebuild. We fight back. We make him pay legally. Legal. She spat the word. He owns the law. Then we go over his head. We take this to the territorial governor, the federal marshal, whoever we have to. A lot of people saw what happened today at the fair. Carmichael, Fletcher, others, they will back us. This is not over. Asha looked at him for a long moment, then at the burning barn, then at Torak clinging to her waist. Slowly, the murder faded from her eyes, replaced by grim determination. All right, she said. We fight. But Nathaniel, no more half measures. If we are doing this, we do it all the way. We put Talbot down so he can never threaten us again. Agreed. They spent the rest of the night rounding up the scattered horses, checking them for injuries, getting them secured in the remaining barn. Amazingly, all 12 had survived, though 2 had minor burns and several were lame from their panicked flight. As dawn broke gray and cold, Nathaniel stood looking at the smoking ruins of the barn, calculating costs and time. Asha emerged from the house with coffee and bread. She looked exhausted, soot still streaking her face, but her eyes were clear. I have been thinking, she said. The tax receipt Pemberton gave me that proves he took my payment. If we combine that with witness testimony from the fair about Talbot's threats and evidence of the arson, we might have enough to get the territorial authorities involved. It is a start, but we need more. Nathaniel sipped the bitter coffee, thinking. The horses. Talbot claimed you sold him 4 and never delivered. If we can prove those 4 horses in his freight yard are the same ones he bought, with your husband's brand, that is fraud on top of everything else. The brands might have been altered. Then we find the original sale record, proof of transfer. There has to be paperwork somewhere. Asha nodded slowly. Gorak kept records of every horse he sold, descriptions, markings, sale prices. It is all in the lockbox. Then we use it. We build a case so airtight that even Talbot's bought judges cannot ignore it. They spent the morning documenting the damage, sketching the barn ruins, noting the chain, writing down everything that happened at the fair. Torak helped, his child's outrage at the injustice lending them all strength. By midday, they had a plan. Nathaniel would ride to the county seat, 3 days away, and file complaints with every authority he could find: territorial marshal, land office, tax board. Asha would stay at the ranch with Torak, guard the horses, and gather more evidence. Fletcher had agreed to check on them daily, and several other valley farmers had sent word offering help. I do not like you going alone, Asha said as Nathaniel saddled his horse. Talbot might try something on the road. I can handle myself, and you need to be here in case he tries again. Nathaniel checked his rifle, made sure his sidearm was loaded. I will be back in a week, maybe less. Can you hold that long? I have held this place alone for 8 months. I can manage another week. But her voice was tight with worry. Nathaniel tied his bedroll behind the saddle, then turned to her. Asha, if something happens, if Talbot comes with force, do not try to fight him. Take Torak and run. The land is not worth dying for. It is worth everything to me. Then stay alive to keep it, please. She stepped closer, and for a moment Nathaniel thought she might touch him, embrace him. Instead, she pulled something from around her neck, a small carved horse on a leather cord, orcish craftsmanship, beautiful and simple. Gorak gave me this on our wedding day, she said. It is supposed to bring safe travel. Take it. Asha, I cannot. You can and you will. She pressed it into his hand, closing his fingers around the carved wood. Come back, Nathaniel Ashford, come back safely. Their eyes met and held, and Nathaniel saw everything she could not say written in her face, fear and hope, and something that might have been love, too new and fragile to speak aloud. I will, he promised. I swear it, he mounted, and Torak ran out from the house. Wait. The boy held up a small package wrapped in cloth. Mama made extra bread for you, and I drew you a picture so you do not forget us. Nathaniel took the package, throat tight. I could never forget you, Torak. Take care of your mother while I am gone. I will. The boy stood straight, trying to look brave, and Nathaniel's heart cracked a little. He rode out, looking back once to see Asha and Torak standing together in the yard, and then the ranch disappeared behind the hills and he was alone on the road. The ride to the county seat took 3 hard days. Nathaniel pushed his horse to the limit, sleeping rough, eating in the saddle. He clutched the carved horse charm in one hand as he rode, a talisman against his own fears. The memory of Asha's face when she gave it to him played over and over in his mind. The county seat was a real town, not like Millbrook brick buildings, paved streets, government offices with official seals. Nathaniel went first to the territorial marshal's office, where a board deputy took his statement with minimal interest. Arson is a local matter, the deputy said. You should talk to your county sheriff. The sheriff is in Talbot's pocket. That is the whole problem. Still local jurisdiction. Marshal only gets involved if there is evidence of territorial crimes, mail fraud, federal land disputes, that kind of thing. Nathaniel gritted his teeth. What about falsifying county records? The notary admitted he did not record a tax payment. Did you get that admission in writing? No, but there are witnesses, hearsay. Look, mister, I sympathize, but you are asking me to investigate a prominent businessman on the word of. The deputy hesitated, choosing words carefully. On limited evidence. Come back when you have something concrete. Nathaniel tried the land office next, then the tax board, then the territorial governor's aide. Everywhere, the same wall of indifference or bureaucratic obstacles. By the 3rd day, frustration was giving way to despair. Without official backing, his word against Talbot's meant nothing. He was leaving the courthouse, trying to figure out his next move, when a voice stopped him. You look like a man with troubles. Nathaniel turned to find an older woman watching him from a bench, sharp eyes assessing him from beneath a wide-brimmed hat. She wore men's riding clothes and a tin star on her vest, a territorial ranger, the closest thing the Western Territories had to independent law enforcement. Ranger, Nathaniel acknowledged. Heard you in there, trying to get someone to care about your arson case. Millbrook area. Yes, madam. How did you know? Because I have been hearing rumors about Marcus Talbot for 2 years now. Bribes, fraud, intimidation, but nobody will testify because he owns half the valley. She stood, moved to stand in front of Nathaniel. I am Ranger Catherine Wells. Tell me everything. Nathaniel did, start to finish, the fraudulent sale, the tax receipt, the horse fare, the fire. Wells listened without interrupting, her expression growing grimmer. The orc widow, she said when he finished. Asha Hornwood, she is your business partner or something more? Nathaniel hesitated, then answered honestly. I do not know what we are yet, but she matters to me. She and her son both. Wells nodded as if he had confirmed something. And you are willing to testify to all this under oath, knowing Talbot will come after you? Yes. Good. Because I have been trying to build a case against Talbot for months, and you just handed me the missing pieces. She pulled out a notebook, started writing. The tax receipt is key. That is documentary evidence of fraud. Combined with the arson and his public threats at the fair, I can get a warrant. But I need that receipt in hand, and I need witness statements from everyone at the fair who heard his threats. I can get both. How long do I have? A week, maybe 2, before Talbot realizes I am building a case. After that, evidence starts disappearing. Wells fixed him with a hard look. This could get dangerous, Ashford. You sure your widow can handle herself if Talbot moves against her? She is stronger than most men I served with, but she should not have to handle it alone. Then get back to her. Gather your evidence, get it to me, and I will handle the rest. Wells handed him a card with an address. Send word when you are ready, and Ashford, watch your back. Talbot has killed before, though no one could prove it. Nathaniel rode out within the hour, pushing his tired horse back toward the ranch. He made the return journey in 2.5 days, fear driving him harder than he had driven himself coming out. The carved horse charm bumped against his chest with every stride, a reminder of what waited for him. He crested the final hill at sunset on the 3rd day, and relief flooded through him. The ranch stood intact, horses grazing peacefully, smoke rising from the chimney. Asha emerged from the house as he rode into the yard, and the smile that broke across her face made the entire brutal journey worthwhile. You came back, she said, and he heard the surprise beneath the relief. I promised, did I not? Nathaniel dismounted, and before he could think better of it, Asha stepped forward and hugged him brief, fierce, then pulling back as if embarrassed. Sorry, I do not be sorry, Nathaniel grinned at her, and I have good news. I found a territorial ranger who wants to help. Over dinner, he told them everything, the bureaucratic runarounds, the meeting with Ranger Wells, the plan to gather evidence. Asha listened intently, asking sharp questions, her tactical mind already working through the steps. If we give Wells the tax receipt and she builds a case, we lose our only proof if something goes wrong, she said. We make copies. Fletcher can witness them, maybe Carmichael too. We create a paper trail Talbot cannot erase. And the witness statements from the fair. I will ride to every person who made an offer on the horses. If even half of them will give written testimony about Talbot's threats, it will be enough. Torak looked between them, eyes bright with hope. Are we going to win? Nathaniel exchanged a glance with Asha. We are going to fight, he said carefully. That is all we can promise. The next week was a blur of activity. Nathaniel rode circuit through the valley, collecting statements from ranchers and traders who had been at the fair. Most were willing to help once they understood the ranger's involvement. Talbot had made plenty of enemies over the years. Fletcher helped, using his network of old friendships to open doors Nathaniel could not. Asha made meticulous copies of every document in the lockbox, with Fletcher and 2 other farmers witnessing and signing each copy. The originals went into a saddlebag Nathaniel would carry to Ranger Wells. The copies went into 3 separate locations: Fletcher's farm, Carmichael's trading office, and buried in a sealed box on ranch land. Even if Talbot burns the house, there will be proof, Asha said grimly. They worked side by side, and the partnership deepened into something neither named but both felt. Small moments accumulated. Asha laughing at one of Nathaniel's stories. Nathaniel catching Asha watching him with softness in her eyes. Hands brushing during shared tasks, and lingering a heartbeat longer than necessary. One evening, after Torak had gone to bed, they sat on the porch in comfortable silence. Asha spoke suddenly, voice quiet. "When this is over, when Talbot is dealt with, what will you do?" Nathaniel considered the question. "I suppose that depends." "On what?" "On whether you want me to stay." He looked at her directly. "I told you before why I stayed initially. That has not changed. But I will not overstay my welcome, Asha. If you want the ranch to yourself again, want to honor Gorak's memory without complications, I understand." Asha was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice shook slightly. "Gorak was my husband and I loved him. I will always love him. But he is gone and you are here, and you have given me and Torak more than just help with the ranch. You have given us hope, friendship, safety." She turned to face him. "I do not know exactly what I am asking for, but I know I do not want you to leave. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Nathaniel reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and took her hand. "I am not going anywhere, Asha, not unless you send me away." She laced her fingers through his, green skin against sun-browned human skin, and they sat like that until the stars came out. 2 days later, Nathaniel rode out to deliver the evidence to Ranger Wells. The meeting was quick. Professional Wells took the documents, reviewed them with a sharp eye, and nodded approval. "This is good work," she said. "With this and my own investigation, I can get warrants for Talbot and Pemberton both. Give me a week to process everything and get the territorial judge's signature. Then we move. What do you need from us? Stay alive, stay visible, act normal, do not let Talbot know you are building a case." Wells fixed him with a stern look. "And Ashford, when we arrest him, there is going to be fallout. Talbot has friends and they will not be happy. You prepared for that. We are prepared to do whatever it takes." "Good man." She offered her hand and Nathaniel shook it. 1 week, then we end this." Nathaniel rode back to the ranch feeling lighter than he had in months. 1 more week and this nightmare would be over. 1 week and Asha could stop looking over her shoulder, could start building the life she and Gorak had planned. He arrived at the ranch to find Fletcher waiting in the yard, his face grim. "What is wrong?" Nathaniel demanded, dismounting quickly. "Talbot was here yesterday. Came with the sheriff and some official-looking papers, demanded to inspect the horses. Asha refused to let them on the property, said they needed a proper warrant. And they left, but Talbot made threats. Said he was going to file for an emergency livestock seizure, claim the horses are diseased and a danger to the valley herds." Nathaniel cursed. "Where is Asha now?" "In the barn with Torak. She has been checking every horse twice a day, documenting that they are healthy. Just in case." Nathaniel found Asha exactly where Fletcher said, running hands over a gelding's legs while Torak recorded notes on a slate. She looked up when he entered and relief flashed across her face. "You are back, good, we have problems. Fletcher told me, Talbot is escalating. He knows we are up to something, he can feel it." Asha straightened, wiping her hands on her trousers. "Whatever your ranger is planning, it needs to happen soon or Talbot is going to force a confrontation. 1 week. Wells said 1 week. We might not have a week." She was right, Nathaniel realized. Talbot was cornered and desperate men did desperate things. He thought quickly, running through options. "Then we make sure we are ready. We get every horse documented, get written health certificates from whatever veterinarian we can find. We make sure Fletcher and the others are ready to witness anything Talbot tries. And we do not let him catch us alone or unprepared." Asha nodded, already moving to the next stall. "Then we work fast. Torak, fetch the record book. We are going to document every marking, every scar, every detail on every horse. If Talbot tries to claim they are diseased or stolen, we will prove otherwise." They worked through the night, fueled by coffee and stubborn determination. By dawn, they had complete records on all 12 horses' descriptions, measurements, health observations. Fletcher brought a veterinarian from 2 valleys over, a gruff man who examined each animal and pronounced them some of the healthiest stock he had seen. His signed certification went into the lockbox with the other documents. "Now what?" Asha asked, exhausted and running on fumes. "Now we wait. And we watch." Nathaniel checked his rifle, made sure it was loaded and ready. "Talbot wants us scared and isolated. We stay visible, stay connected to Fletcher and the others, and we count down the days until Wells makes her move." The next 5 days crawled past in tense watchfulness. Twice, riders appeared on the horizon and they prepared for trouble, only to have them pass by harmlessly. Talbot did not come, but his presence hung over everything like a storm about to break. On the 6th night, Asha found Nathaniel on the porch, keeping watch. "You should sleep," she said. "I can take a turn, in a while. I am too wound up." She sat beside him and they shared the silence. After a while, Asha spoke hesitantly. "If this works, if Wells arrests Talbot and we keep the ranch, what then? Then you have options. You can run the ranch yourself, hire hands, whatever you want." "That is not what I am asking." Asha turned to face him. "What I am asking is, would you consider staying, not as a hired hand or a temporary partner, but as," she struggled for words, "as family, as someone permanent?" Nathaniel's heart kicked hard in his chest. "Asha, I know it is soon. I know I should wait longer, mourn Gorak properly, but I also know that life is short and uncertain, and you have given me and Torak more than I can repay. You make me feel safe. You make Torak laugh. You fit here in a way I did not expect." She took his hand. "So I am asking, stay. Help me run the ranch, help me raise Torak, be part of this with me, not just until the crisis passes, but for good." Nathaniel searched her face, saw vulnerability and hope and determination there. "You are sure?" "I am sure. I do not want to lose you. The rest we can figure out as we go." He cupped her face gently, thumbs brushing her cheeks, and saw her eyes widen. "Then yes, yes, I will stay, for as long as you will have me." Asha's breath caught, and then she was leaning forward, closing the small distance between them. Their lips met softly, hesitantly, a question and answer both. Nathaniel felt her tusks brush his face, felt the strength in her hands as they gripped his shoulders, and something in him eased, a piece clicking into place. When they pulled apart, Asha was smiling, really smiling, her whole face transformed with joy. "So that is settled then?" "I suppose it is." Nathaniel grinned back, "though we might want to tell Torak before he figures it out on his own. Torak figured it out weeks ago. He has been asking when you are going to marry me." "Has he now?" Nathaniel laughed. "Smart boy." They sat together, hands clasped, watching the stars wheel overhead. Tomorrow Ranger Wells would arrive with warrants and authority. Tomorrow they would face whatever came. But tonight, for this moment, they had each other, and that was enough. Wells arrived at mid-morning the next day with 4 armed deputies and a document case thick with warrants. She surveyed the ranch, nodded approval at the neat records and prepared defenses, then got down to business. "We hit Talbot's office and residence simultaneously," she said, spreading a map on the kitchen table. "Pemberton too. With the evidence you provided and my own investigation, I have warrants for fraud, arson, bribery, and conspiracy. Even if some charges do not stick, enough will." "You want us there?" Nathaniel asked. "I want you safe. That means here with witnesses." Wells looked at Asha. "Your testimony will be crucial at trial, Mrs. Hornwood, but today you stay out of the line of fire. I want to see his face when you arrest him, and I want you alive to testify. We do this my way." Asha looked ready to argue, but Nathaniel touched her arm. "Wells is right. We have done our part. Let the law handle it from here. Grudgingly, Asha agreed. Wells and her deputies rode out and the waiting began. Fletcher came to stand watch with them, along with 2 other valley farmers. They sat in the yard, rifles ready, watching the road. Noon passed. Early afternoon. Nathaniel paced, burning off nervous energy. Asha stood like a statue, eyes fixed on the horizon. Torak pressed against her side, sensing the tension. Then, finally, a rider appeared, one of Wells's deputies, riding hard. He pulled up in the yard, breathing heavy. "It is done," he said. Talbot and Pemberton both in custody, along with 2 hired men who turned witness in exchange for lighter charges. "Ranger Wells says you should come to town when you are ready, give formal statements." Asha made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "It is over. The arrests are made. There is still trial and everything, but the hard part is done." The deputy grinned. Talbot went purple when Wells read the charges, tried to bribe her on the spot in front of witnesses, just dug his hole deeper. Nathaniel felt tension drain out of him like water. "Thank you. Tell Wells we will be in tomorrow." The deputy rode off, and for a moment the 4 of them, Nathaniel, Asha, Torak, and Fletcher, just stood staring at each other. Then Asha started laughing, a little hysterically, and pulled Torak into a tight hug. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." "You did it," Fletcher corrected. "You held on when most would have given up. Gorak would be proud, girl." Asha's eyes welled with tears. "Thank you, Fletcher, for everything." The old farmer tipped his hat, gathered his friends, and rode off, leaving the 3 of them alone in the yard. Torak looked between his mother and Nathaniel, grinning. "Does this mean we get to keep the ranch?" "It means," Nathaniel said, ruffling the boy's hair, "that nobody is taking it from us. Ever." "Us," Torak repeated, testing the word. "Does that mean you are staying, for always?" Nathaniel glanced at Asha, saw her nod slightly. "Yes, if your mother agrees, I am staying for always." Torak whooped and threw himself at Nathaniel, who caught him with a startled laugh. Asha watched them, tears streaming down her green cheeks, and Nathaniel reached out one arm to pull her into the embrace. They stood like that, the 3 of them tangled together, and it felt right. It felt like family. The trial took place 6 weeks later in the county seat, a week-long affair that drew spectators from across the territory. Nathaniel and Asha both testified, their statements backed by the meticulous evidence they had gathered. Talbot's lawyers tried everything: character assassination, claims of orcish deceit, accusations that Nathaniel was simply a dupe, but the documents did not lie, and neither did the dozen witnesses who corroborated the story. In the end, the jury took less than 2 hours to convict on all major charges. Talbot was sentenced to 10 years in the territorial prison. Pemberton got 5, with his notary credentials revoked permanently. The fraudulent deed was voided. Asha's original claim was reaffirmed, and at Ranger Wells's suggestion, Nathaniel's name was added to the deed as co-owner, making the ranch legally theirs together. Walking out of the courthouse, Asha took Nathaniel's hand and squeezed tight. "We won. We won." So what now? Nathaniel thought about it, about the ranch waiting for them, about the spring foals that would need training, about Torak growing up with 2 parents who loved him and land he could call his own. "Now we go home," he said, "and we build the life Gorak started." Asha smiled, radiant despite the exhaustion on her face. Together. Together. They collected Torak from the boarding house where he had been staying with Fletcher's family, and the 3 of them rode out of town toward the ranch. The autumn air was crisp, smelling of wood smoke and coming winter. In the distance, hills rolled golden under a clear sky. "Can we get a dog?" Torak asked out of nowhere. "Papa always said we could get a dog when the ranch was settled." Asha and Nathaniel exchanged glances, and Asha laughed. Yes, we can get a dog, maybe two. And can I help train the spring foals? As long as you listen to your mother and do not take foolish chances, yes. Torak chattered happily about dog breeds and training methods, and Nathaniel let the words wash over him, content just to listen. Asha rode beside him, her face peaceful in a way he had never seen before. And he realized this was what he had been searching for all those months on the road, not just land or a new start, but a place where he belonged, people who needed him, a purpose worth fighting for. Winter came, and with it, a quiet settling into routine. The burned barn was rebuilt with help from Fletcher and a dozen other valley farmers who showed up unannounced one morning with timber and tools. Asha protested she could not pay them, and Fletcher just laughed. "Call it a barn raising," he said. "Traditional when good neighbors need help." The work went fast with so many hands, and by the first snow the new barn stood sturdy and sound, larger than the original. Torak carved the dedication beam himself, with Fletcher's guidance, burning in the words Hornwood Ranch and the date. Nathaniel and Asha married quietly in late winter, with only Torak, Fletcher, and Ranger Wells as witnesses. No church would perform the ceremony. Human orc marriages were legal but not popular, so they spoke their vows in the ranch house kitchen, before the fireplace where Gorak and Asha had cooked 1,000 meals together. Asha wore a simple green dress, and Nathaniel wore his cavalry blues, cleaned and mended for the occasion. When the circuit judge pronounced them married, Torak cheered, and Fletcher produced a bottle of whiskey he had been saving for something special. They toasted the future, and Nathaniel kissed his wife, feeling her smile against his lips. "You are sure about this?" she whispered. "No regrets?" "Not one," he said firmly. "Not ever." Spring brought the foals, 6 strong colts and fillies from their best mares. Torak spent every spare moment in the barn, helping his mother and Nathaniel with the endless work of caring for newborns and managing breeding stock. The boy had his father's gift with horses, a natural calm that the animals responded to. "He is going to be better than either of us," Asha said one evening, watching Torak gentle a skittish filly with patient hands. "He has good teachers," Nathaniel replied, "and a good example to follow." By the time autumn brought the horse fair again, the ranch was transformed. The new barn gleamed, the paddocks were full of healthy stock, and the spring ran clear and strong despite another dry summer. Nathaniel and Asha arrived with 3 yearlings to sell, plus advance orders for next year's foals, and the crowd that gathered to see the Hornwood horses was 3 times what it had been the year before. Carmichael bought 2 yearlings on the spot, paying top price and commissioning 3 more for future delivery. Other traders competed for the 3rd, driving the price higher. By midday, Asha had enough gold in hand to operate the ranch for 2 years without worry, and a waiting list of buyers for stock that would not be ready for another year. "Gorak's dream," she said quietly, watching Torak lead a colt through the ring, showing off its gates. This is what he wanted, recognition that the bloodline was worth the work. He would be proud, Nathaniel agreed, not just of the horses but of what you have done to keep it going. Asha leaned against him slightly, and Nathaniel put his arm around her waist, uncaring of the stares from some of the crowd. Let them look. Let them whisper. He had his family, his home, his purpose. Nothing else mattered. As the sun set over the fairgrounds and they loaded the unsold horses for the journey home, Torak ran up with a blue ribbon first place in the yearling class. "We won, Mama. The judges said our colt was the best bred horse they had seen in 10 years. Asha crouched down and pulled her son into a fierce hug. "Your papa would be so proud, Torak. You did his work honor." "We all did," Torak said, including Nathaniel in his bright gaze. "All of us together." Nathaniel ruffled the boy's hair, throat tight with emotion. "That we did, son. That we did." They rode home through the autumn evening, the blue ribbon fluttering from Torak's saddle, the sound of the boys' happy chatter filling the air. Nathaniel looked over at Asha, saw her smiling that rare, full smile, and thought about how far they had come from that first night when she stood in a barn doorway with a knife in her hand and fear in her eyes. 1 gold coin, a fraudulent deed, and a desperate widow. It should have been a disaster. Instead, it became the foundation for everything he had wanted without knowing he wanted it. A home, a family, a reason to build instead of destroy. As the ranch came into view, lights glowing warm in the windows, Asha reached over and took his hand. "Thank you," she said softly, "for staying, for fighting, for choosing us." "Thank you for letting me," Nathaniel replied, "for trusting me when you had every reason not to." "No regrets." He thought about the question seriously, then shook his head. "Not one. This is exactly where I am meant to be." Asha's grip on his hand tightened, and they rode on toward home, toward the life they had fought for and built together, toward whatever the future held. Behind them, the sun set golden over the valley, painting the hills with light. Ahead, the ranch waited, solid and real and theirs. And it was enough, more than enough. It was everything,